Hi, I'm Kat.
And I'm Susan,
We're friends, moms, wives, and small business owners.
and we care deeply about the future.
This is a space for real conversations about real politics.
From two women living it every day.
No spin, no shouting, just truth, respect, and a hope for a brighter tomorrow.
We're Left Right USA.
Welcome to the conversation.
Hello, today we are going to talk about how this administration is corrupting our justice system. Now, Susan here has completed a lot of research around this, so she's going to be the expert today. And tell us why you really wanted to dig into this exact topic.
Well, we've kind of been working on some videos to basically inform people what's going on. It's hard to keep track.
Yeah.
There's so much that we get coming at us all day, every day, and we think, oh my gosh, whoa, and then the next day it's something else. And so I like to put everything together and kind of make it presented in one place so that everyone can understand kind of the scope of what's going on
Right.
with his administration. It's not just one or two things, it's a lot of things.
Right.
And so we'll put it all together in one place, help people know what's going on, what's true, what's not true, just so you can be informed, you can know what we're up against.
Right. And I've seen some of the actions that the DOJ has done, and with my experience, like 15 years of experience with a background in paralegal work in various legal areas, I just am aghast at some of the things that Pam Bondi has done, some of the things that the DOJ has done to capitulate to this administration's executive orders, illegal actions, and unconstitutional actions.
Yeah.
So, I see that, and we'll share several examples in this video of the recent corruption of the justice system. And it's got to the point where I used to think, well, this is the Department of Justice. They're going to follow the law.
Right. Despite
And I don't trust that anymore.
Yeah,
At
exactly.
all, I don't trust that anymore.
And we're going to kind of see why we can't anymore as
Yeah.
we discuss this today.
Yeah, and that starts with just how Trump has retaliated against law firms and targeted lawyers specifically that worked on cases against him.
Right.
By taking away their security clearances, their contracts,
And telling
forbidding
them they
those
can't
lawyers.
enter federal buildings.
Yeah,
Yes.
to enter federal buildings. There are lawsuits right now,
Right.
that have been brought against
this
the administration. Let's talk about that.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
this one is pretty cut and dried, with his targeting of the law firms. So all of those lawsuits that have been brought have all been decided as unconstitutional. His orders were unconstitutional,
Mhm.
and they've permanently blocked enforcement of those orders, which makes
Right.
it kind of sad that so many law firms did kind of capitulate instead of fighting it,
Right.
because it seems to have been a clear legal precedent. So
Mhm.
anyway, but yeah, so the judges found those orders to be an attack on the law firm's First and Fifth Amendment rights.
Right.
You know,
Even as
and-
companies, they have rights.
Right.
Not just individuals. Right.
And as well as a broader assault on the American legal system.
Yeah.
So they violate the two First Amendment freedoms, the freedom of speech and the freedom to petition the government for a redress of grievances.
Right.
That's in the Constitution. We have to be able to petition the government. If we think it's done something wrong, we have to be able to bring that. And if you target the law firms that can do that, that is basically curtailing people's right to do that.
Right. And so the Sixth Amendment, it guarantees the right of that criminal defendant to have witnesses present, to have a public trial without any unnecessary delay, and the right to an attorney.
Right, exactly. And so if you start to go against to curtail the attorney's right to even do their job, their ability to do their job, you're basically curtailing any citizen's right to be able to get a competent lawyer.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, then I saw how the DOJ fired the one attorney that, and this was the first case that really pulled me into this whole corruption of the DOJ and the justice system. The attorney that was there about Kilmar Abrego Garcia,
Mm-hmm.
saying, yeah, it looks like this was a mistake. We
Mhm.
deported him, sent him to CCOT on accident,
Right.
and that attorney got fired.
Right. That's one of the cases. And that's one of the things that makes it so that we can't really have confidence in the Department of Justice actually dealing out justice anymore, because there's been so many people fired and let go
Yeah.
from the Department of Justice when they wouldn't do things that the lawyers knew were illegal or that weren't supported by evidence, and they would just get fired. And that was the case for Rez Raveni that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
He was asked to sign an affidavit that Kilmar Abrego Garcia was a member of MS-13, and he said he asked for evidence,
Yeah.
and he wasn't given any. So he said, I can't sign this.
Right, because it's not true.
We don't have any evidence,
Right.
And so he wouldn't do it. And he again did admit in court that they had taken him to El Salvador mistakenly, because there was a prior judge's order saying that he could not be deported to El Salvador.
But it wasn't even a deportation.
Right. Well, put in prison.
He was put directly in prison. And
technically.
From my viewpoint, having been a paralegal, the only people, as we talked about in other videos, the only people who are legally have the legal right to put anyone into a prison is a judge or a jury. Not Trump, not Holman, not the administration.
Yeah.
For someone to go directly to prison.
Yeah.
You have to. And due process has to deal with when someone, especially going to prison, and this deals with, justice and the justice system. Someone going directly to prison, they have to have a trial. They have to have a sentencing.
Right.
That sentence has to have, it has to comply with our U.S. Code of Civil Procedures, Civil and Criminal Procedures.
Right.
There has to be a tenure to that sentence, and none of that happened with any of these men.
Right. Exactly.
So
again, where's the justice?
Right. Where's the justice? And
Right.
so when you look at the employee, the attorney that was fired because he didn't lie
right
in court about Kilmar Abrego, how many attorneys have been fired from the Department of Justice because of that?
He's far from the only one. We
Right.
know there's at least a dozen who were fired because they worked on criminal prosecutions of President Trump in the past.
Right.
And they also fired at least 37 people who worked on January 6th cases.
That's crazy.
Lawyers, support staff, and U.S. Marshals. And the thing that bothers me about that is that these people were just doing their jobs.
Yeah.
Their superiors told them, okay, here's the investigation we're doing, do this work on it. It's not like they sought out opportunities to go against President Trump or, I definitely am going to seek out my opportunity to have revenge on the administration. They were just doing their jobs. And they've been retaliatorily fired because of it, because of just doing their jobs.
Yeah.
We also know that in the federal programs branch, which is the lawyers that represent the government, 69 out of that 110 lawyers have either been fired or quit. Over 50 immigration judges have also been fired by this administration for really no reason given, which is curious. And just so you know, those judges are not part of the judicial branch.
Right.
Those judges are part of the executive branch because they're immigration judges.
Right.
And there's no good reason to fire them, no real good reason given. And we have such a backlog of immigration cases that it doesn't make any sense.
No, that doesn't.
So if we want to talk about some more individual cases, you brought up the Rez Raveni one. Well, there was another one with Denise Chung.
Yeah.
She was fired because she was asked to open a grand jury investigation into the awarding of EPA grants. But she refused. She said, we don't have enough evidence. And then she also refused to use her DOJ powers to freeze EPA funds. Because she said, we just don't have cause, right? And the FBI even came to her at the Department of Justice asking for legal guidance in the matter because they had been asked to freeze the funds under the FBI. And so she was fired because she wouldn't do that, because she was trying to follow the law. So that gives us pause at trusting the Department of Justice right now.
Yeah, and that makes me think of the one attorney who she actually went in front of Congress to testify. What was her name again? Because it had to do with Mel Gibson.
Oh, Liz Oyer. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Liz Oyer. Yeah, she was the Department of Justice has started reviewing people who were banned from owning personal firearms because of prior convictions.
Yeah.
And so they're reviewing those and having her review them.
Mm-hmm.
And she had come up with a list of people, and they asked her to put Mel Gibson on the list of people who could now own firearms.
Sounds like someone got a payment from Mel Gibson.
Well, I don't know, but anyway, she
Why
said
else?
we can't do this
Follow the money.
because he had domestic violence, you know.
Yeah.
And so
charges. Yeah.
I don't think that's a good idea. You know, that's
Right.
not within what we're supposed to be doing.
Right.
And she was fired right after that.
Yeah.
So it's silly things like that, just silly little things, because they wouldn't go along with a something the administration wanted, but also all of these things they're being asked to do were illegal or weren't warranted by the evidence. So these lawyers who are trying to hold the line, trying to make sure that justice is done, were let go. And you know, who's left? You know, the lawyers that are left, are they trying to hold the line? I hope. But they might be being replaced by people who are willing to be more flexible with the law.
The loyalists.
So it makes all of us in more danger, because we can't count on the Department of Justice to actually mete out justice.
Right.
Which is a sad thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So what about Trump targeting individuals in executive orders? I don't think I've ever seen that. Has that ever happened before?
Not
targeting individuals?
Not that I have been able to find, but yeah, it's in the cases of Christopher Krebs and Miles Taylor. He doesn't like either one. Christopher Krebs was his appointee to lead CISA, the Cybersecurity Division, in 2018. And his only fault was that after the 2020 election, he
Is this
said,
election denier stuff? Oh my God.
He said the election was fair, and he disputed claims of election fraud. He said, no, the election was fair. There's
no evidence,
yeah.
Right.
And so for that, President Trump is targeting him. And then Miles Taylor was President Trump's chief of staff at the Department of Homeland Security.
Right.
And he left after only about a year, right? He was not too happy about things that he saw going on there.
Right.
So if you might remember, he published an anonymous op-ed in 2018 while he was still there.
I do. I think I saw an interview with him.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I know who you're
he
talking about.
described himself as part of a secret resistance to counter Trump's misguided impulses. So President Trump really didn't like that. And I believe it triggered a bunch of look for the leakers type of investigations at the time. And then after he left government service, he published a book under the same name that he'd used in the anonymous op-ed. And then he wrote another book under his own name, in which he basically said, we need to watch out. You know, we don't want him to come back to office. So, of course, President Trump does not like him. And so he wrote the executive order, which specifically named these two men.
Right.
You know, and he accused Miles Taylor of leaking sensitive information, of being treasonous, and, you know, of Chris Krebs for basically not denying the election along with him. And both of those investigations, he opened Department of Justice investigations on the both, and they're both still ongoing.
Right.
And he also asked the Department of Homeland Security to review Taylor. So the one thing I noticed is that he asked took away their security clearances at their current jobs.
Right.
And the security clearances of everyone they worked with at their current jobs.
Yeah.
And I thought, what in the world? How can you justify taking away the security clearances of everyone they work with?
Yeah, because
it's totally unrelated.
That interrupts their ability to request discovery in investigations and cases that they may be involved in.
It means they can't do their current work.
Exactly.
It says private sector jobs. They had nothing to do with what they're doing in the government, right? And so Miles Taylor has actually asked the Inspector General's office at the DOJ to open an investigation into the whole thing. He's like, investigate me, you know? He wants to know. So, yeah, let's take a look at this next topic here.
Okay. Okay.
So the next topic is telling immigration judges how to decide their cases.
That was crazy when I learned about that. I learned
Yeah.
about that, what, a week or two ago?
Yeah, exactly. So let's hear what some of the judges who have since been fired have said about what pressure they were getting. There was a Judge George Pappas. He said, "Yes, I was pressured, and I know that my superior also had pressure from above. I was told to grant motions to dismiss when ICE was roaming around the hallways. So I guess because they dismissed their cases, then as soon as they came out of the courtroom, then
Mhm.
ICE would grab them."
Right. And we have these quotes up on screen. I can see that that's Judge George Pappas.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also have a Judge Ela Dice.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. She said, "We've recently been directed how to rule on motions."
And then, yeah, okay.
So it's
yeah,
like,
it's crazy.
I mean, with your legal background,
Mhm.
the Department of Justice isn't supposed to be telling judges how they have to rule, right?
Right,
That's
'cause
not
then-
good. That's not legal. That's probably some kind of undue influence. Like, the judges are supposed to be free to rule according to the law as they see fit. They're not supposed to say, "Oh, well, you have to decide your cases like this." You know,
Right.
that's not good. And then the judges basically said that it seems like the Trump administration is behind a purge of immigration judges that don't align with its policies. So if you're too lenient or something, they don't want you around, which is probably a reason they've been firing immigration judges, even with our huge backlog of cases and all the more people that are being deported.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
we've had over 100 immigration judges that had either left or been fired.
Right.
But we only had like 700 total. And then the
Yeah,
big,
across the
beautiful-
whole nation.
Yeah, and the big beautiful budget bill capped it at 800. So I don't understand that,
Yeah.
because we have so many cases to hear. We need more judges. Let's use some of all that money that they just got awarded, and let's hire some more.
Right. Yeah, I know. I don't understand that. I don't understand that, except for if you follow the money and you look at it really is, it really looks like it appears to be an ethnic purge.
It kind of does.
Yeah, I'm not saying it is, but that's what it looks like, and that's why they've capped the judges, because they don't think the judges are going to have that much work. And the judges that will be there, if they continue to fill the positions with loyalists that will do what they're told, then it will have the appearance of a legal process, but it won't be.
Yeah.
And it will be just judges ruling to dismiss all the cases and draw in all of the Latinos and the Haitians and whatnot into the court, so it makes it easier for the ICE operations to do their job.
Yeah,
that's what it
exactly.
looks like. That's
what
on its
I'm worried
face.
about that as well, because if they don't really want enough judges to actually address things legally, it makes me think they're not planning to really do things legally.
Right. They're
And-
just skipping over. This is the way they're going to skip over due process.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how I see it.
Mm-hmm.
Just opinion, but that's how I see it, based
Yeah.
on putting puzzle pieces together and following the money.
Yeah.
So then when we look at the judicial system and free and fair elections, how does that tie into it?
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't really realize this and the extent of this until I started researching for this video, was there are quite a few measures that have been taken by the Department of Justice that could interfere with free and fair elections.
Tell me more about that.
Well, first of all, I think we should mention that the Constitution gives states exclusive authority to set the time, place, and manner of federal elections,
Right?
only
Yeah.
subject to legislation by Congress. So that's in Article 1, Section 4 of the Constitution.
Okay.
So only the states are supposed to be able to run elections.
Right.
So there's several things that the Department of Justice has been doing lately. One, they've been dropping cases that they had previously started on voter purging. So
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you've read up about voter purging,
Yeah.
or what that is.
Yeah, I think Greg Palast has a lot of theoretical information available at his website that talks about how voter purging in this last election caused, 1.5 million voters to not be counted.
Yeah.
And if they had been counted, then Harris would have won.
Yeah. From what I understand, there's been quite a few instances where people were a little too zealous on the voter purging, and basically, and what that is they're trying to say, okay, well, maybe these people don't live here anymore. Let's send them a postcard or something, and then if they don't return the postcard, then it means they don't live here anymore, and we're going to take them off the voter roll. So
right. A signed postcard, and those postcards looked like junk mail.
Yeah,
something that you would just, oh, okay, it's junk, throw it away. Yeah.
So if they don't respond, then they probably don't live here anymore, and even if they vote, then we're not going to count their vote because they're not on the voter rolls.
Right.
So just lots of things like that.
Yeah, and so when you look at what that looks like, and the complaints all across like the Democratic side of voting for Kamala Harris and whatnot, you look at all of that and all of the complaints about, well, why didn't everybody come out and vote? Well, what I see having happened is it's possible that those people did vote and those votes weren't counted.
Well,
people actually did come out for Harris and those votes weren't counted.
Yeah,
that's what I kind of see having happened.
We know
possibly
cases where that did happen, where it's pretty well certified. But let's not. We need to see the text, but yeah, it's. I think that there are definitely cases where there have been like civilian volunteers involved who have done the purging, the voter rolls, and just other things. But in any case, they've had cases that the Department of Justice was actively investigating, and they have now dropped them as of when President Trump came into office. So there's a lawsuit in Alabama, there's a lawsuit in Kentucky, all about, so, and they've also filed a brief supporting a looser standard for purging voters. So they're trying to make it easier to dump people off the rolls so their votes don't count. And that's a problem. There's also things that this administration has been doing to try to increase federal control over the states conducting the elections, which I think is a problem.
It is. That's unconstitutional again.
Yeah. And the states need to have that autonomy. They cannot. The problem is you shouldn't have federal control over the elections to decide who's going to be in charge federally.
Right.
That's a real problem.
Yeah.
That's why the Constitution gave the states the ability to run elections.
So, what kind of measures are being sought to exert the federal control over states conducting the elections?
Well,
what do you see happening there?
By May, the DOJ was threatening lawsuits and filing them over voter registration record maintenance and citizenship verifications, which is all well and good, right? Record maintenance should be done.
Yeah.
Citizenship should be verified.
Yeah.
But in threatening and filing lawsuits against the states about it, it's basically saying, oh, well, we want federal control over that. You states are not doing a good enough job, in our opinion, so we're going to file lawsuits. Now,
and
remember,
that's just flat out harassing.
Yeah, it is. And remember that it's Congress that makes the laws that kind of basically regulate the elections, and then the states get to run it as they see fit.
Mm-hmm.
But if
the legislative branch,
if the executive branch is starting to come in and harassing the states about it, even if the lawsuits are found to be without merit, it still really gives the states a lot of problems, and all of those poor election officials that are in enough stress, because they've been getting threatened and harassed ever since before 2020, and so it's very difficult for them. And then they've also, besides the lawsuits harassing the states, they've also began contacting states to demand access to personal information and voter data rolls.
I remember hearing about that too.
Yeah. At least 16 states have gotten letters or other communications seeking the voter data. And some of the letters are from federal prosecutors. It's like, why are federal prosecutors trying to gain access to this voter information? And the Department of Justice doesn't have a role in administering elections. So why are they seeking all of this data? What are they going to do with it?
I can't remember what state, but I do remember the one person that talked about his call that he received from someone within the administration saying, yeah, Trump told me to do this. Trump told me to call you and ask for this information.
Right, exactly. And then in June, the Department of Justice even sued a county in California because they wouldn't turn over personally identifying information about voters. And so it's getting,
But didn't they lose that suit?
I think,
Or is it still ongoing?
I think it's still ongoing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And they've been sending broad requests for information to election officials. Just a lot of interference trying to get our data. It really, there's no jurisdiction by the Department of Justice on this.
Right.
And I've heard they're even looking into whether the Department of Justice can bring criminal charges against election officials for not doing
Okay.
enough to protect their voting systems against fraud and illegal voting. But the thing is, the election officials are doing what the state tells them to do, right? The
Right.
state has their own regulations about this, and if they're following those, then that should be what their job is, and adequately enough. It basically seems to be another attempt to harass election officials,
Right.
and to throw a wrench into state elections and being able to exert that federal control from
Right.
the executive branch.
Right,
So
right.
it's a real problem. Yeah. One other thing that they've done is the federal government did used to give some support to states in relation to cybersecurity.
Right.
So they've
But-
dropped all cybersecurity support that they used to give to the states for elections.
Right. Yeah, I remember reading that too. And isn't there something in the big ugly bill about that as well?
I'm
Where
not
they don't
sure.
fund cybersecurity so
Oh
much
yeah,
anymore?
yeah. The Elections Infrastructure Information Sharing and Analysis Center. So that was a network that helped with information sharing about security risks and best practices.
Yeah.
And so they've stopped funding that. So it's just like all of these things put together, right,
Mhm.
paints quite the picture. Stopping giving cybersecurity support, harassing the election officials, trying to get personal voter data when there's no real reason for the Department of Justice to have it,
Mhm.
and then
Yeah.
also trying to make it easier to purge voters. All sort of add up to a picture of an administration that wants to ensure they're going to be elected in, and all of their people are going to be elected in upcoming elections.
Right.
Which is very worrying.
Yes. Very much so.
Yeah.
So when we look at the Justice Department and some of the additional actions, we also have seen the gutting of Civil Rights Unit.
Yeah. So there is a civil rights unit in
Mhm.
the Justice Department,
Right.
and it has had a major sea change, right?
Yeah.
So we think about the civil rights. We know it talks about like rights for African Americans
Mhm.
and all
Yeah.
kinds of other things that, and
And it ties into DEI,
it does.
diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And anyway, prior to President Trump's inauguration, the division employed more than 400 attorneys, and 250 of them, about 70%, have left.
Okay.
And a lot of them have stated how upset they are about the major mission change at the Civil Rights Unit. So they're now putting a high priority on eliminating diversity initiatives, right?
Yeah.
Getting rid of that DEI, opposing transgender rights, investigating campus protests with the stated purpose of combating anti-Semitism. But
Which is not about.
I think that's silly, because you should be able to oppose the actions of the state of Israel
Huh?
without it being
without
called
attacking
anti-Semitism.
the fact that they are Israelites.
Right. Exactly.
Personally. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can still
And-
criticize it.
And they're doing, there have been having some hearings with Jewish experts,
Mhm.
anti-Semitism experts.
I watched those hearings. I did see
Yeah.
those. Yes.
And they've all said, okay, yeah, just basically opposing the actions of the state of Israel is not anti-Semitism.
Right.
And this administration has been trying to conflate the two, and that's incorrect. You can say, well, I don't like what Israel is doing, without it being anti-Semitic.
Mm-hmm.
So their stated missions, their new stated missions at the Civil Rights Unit is protecting children from chemical and surgical mutilation. Okay,
Okay, that has to do with transgender.
right. Keeping men out of women's sports.
Transgender.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of it.
hmm So eradicating anti-Christian bias, but that's good, but I'm not sure there's really a big problem with that. And additional measures to combat anti-Semitism, which I think appears to be a tool, right? I'm not sure that
It's a front.
anti-Semitism
It's a
is
front
really
that makes
going
it sound
on.
good to their base, to the
Yeah.
MAGA base. It's a front.
Yeah.
It's a front to excuse and support their racism and the ethnic cleansing that is a part of Project 2025.
Yeah, and to try to stop people from being able to protest and have free
Exactly.
speech.
Right. It's
Yeah.
an attack on our First Amendment rights as well.
Yeah.
I see that. Yep, definitely.
So again, they have dropped investigations that they previously were running, withdrawn statements of interest or amicus briefs in at least 30 cases.
Right.
Public court records show they include cases related to voting rights,
Yep.
to alleged racial discrimination in hiring, and civil actions against anti-abortion activists. They've also ended investigations into 8 different police departments, and I thought this was interesting. They've rescinded findings of misconduct that they previously made. I thought that was
Wow.
interesting. They've dropped voting rights cases that are aimed at combating racial discrimination. They have backed away from pay discrimination lawsuits. They have terminated environmental justice settlements. They've shifted the focus towards voter fraud investigations rather than protecting voting access.
Okay.
And of course, opposing the transgender protections, prioritizing cases on religious liberty and gun rights. Now, some of this stuff is okay, but some of it is worrying, right? And it's just such a major change that all of those people that used to work for the civil rights division are gone, and that's so many of them. 70% gone is a huge change. So I'm a little concerned about all of that.
Yeah, I am too. I have loved ones who are transgender.
Same.
And who are part of the LGBTQ plus community.
Same.
And I mean, even just cutting off support for like the 1-800 toll-free support line for at-risk youth who are transgender, who are part of the LGBTQ plus community.
Yeah, I'm worried about
ending that.
Yeah.
What I saw though is Canada opened a line specifically for U.S. citizens.
And said you can call
and
this line.
And they're supporting, Canada is supporting American youth.
Yeah.
Through that toll-free line.
Mm-hmm.
And that's amazing. I mean, with everything that our administration has done to provoke Canada, Canada is still opening their arms to our citizens. And that is amazing. I mean, that's kind of off topic, but I mean, making any group feel so marginalized and so irrelevant is not acceptable.
Right. Yeah.
It's not acceptable. It's so concerning.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when we look at suicide rates over the next couple of years,
I worry about the impact.
We're going to see,
especially
I think we're going to see it. I think we're going to see it increase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In our marginalized groups of our youth.
Yeah,
so
I agree. Well, to finish up, I guess we have to mention Emil Beauvais. We've talked about him before.
Yeah, because he just got confirmed, didn't he?
Yeah, he was the number 3 role at the Justice Department, but now he's been nominated to sit on the Third Circuit Court of Appeals.
Yeah.
And been confirmed. So he was the one who led all the efforts to fire the Department of Justice employees who were assigned to work on cases against President Trump.
Mm-hmm.
He also led the efforts to fire FBI employees who worked on January 6th cases, even though he himself worked on January 6th cases before he left the Department of Justice. So it's kind of a double standard
previously
there.
Yep.
He also threatened to fire a bunch of federal lawyers if they wouldn't sign on to drop the corruption case against Eric Adams, a New York City lawyer.
Right.
A bunch of whistleblowers have come forward to say that he told Justice Department lawyers to ignore the federal judge's orders in the case of those immigrants sent to El Salvador.
Yep.
And was said they'd have to tell the courts FU. And a third whistleblower has come forward to say that he lied to senators at his confirmation hearing last month. So he's a bad actor, and he's been behind a lot of the bad things that the Department of Justice has been doing. And Senators Schiff and Booker have asked the Justice Department's Inspector General's office to confirm for lawmakers, have they even started an investigation into Beauvais? Because
Yeah.
all of those actions, it really should be investigated, and there's no reason why it shouldn't be. So
Yeah, I mean, he got appointed to be on an appeals court,
yeah.
but he's never sat as a judge in a regular court.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and usually that really needs to be a precursor for sitting as a judge in an appeals court.
Yeah.
So again, another instance of various instances where a person has been appointed who does not qualify for the position because they're a loyalist.
Right. Exactly. And that seems to be the primary motivator for this administration and the entire Justice Department is, are you willing to do exactly what we tell you to do, despite whether it's justice or not?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's all we have in talking about. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah,
We've had
it's a lot.
an exceptionally longer video than we expected. So if you have any ideas, please let us know.
Write it in the comments or send us an email.
Remember to like and subscribe. We're also on Substack
and Facebook.
Yep. So give us a shout out and thanks.
Welcome to the conversation.
And welcome to the conversation.